Discover 7 incredible lessons that will transform you into a mentally untouchable force. Jamie stood at the counter of the diner, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mixing with the sweet aroma of pancakes. Yet, the laughter of customers felt like a distant echo. Her heart was heavy. Every smile she offered was like a tiny mask. She worked tirelessly, pouring every drop of energy into her day shifts, saving smiles for her son, Ben, who was waiting at home. Each night, she wiped down office desks, her hands moving like a machine while her mind drifted to dreams of a better future for Ben. This life was her fight, the kind of American tenacity that made her cling to hope, even as shadows loomed ever closer. When the factory announced layoffs, the buzz of the town shifted. Fear seeped into the cracks of their community. Jamie felt it too. Her coworkers were starting to whisper about what this meant for their jobs. A pit formed in her stomach. Would she lose both her incomes? Would she let down Ben, the one shining light in her world? As her heart raced with panic, she tried not to dwell on those thoughts, clinging to her belief that family and community would hold them together. But the moment she met Mr. Hawthorne, everything changed. His casual arrogance, the way he dismissed their fears, ignited a fire inside her. "It's just business," he said, his voice cold, eyes flickering over her like she was irrelevant. Jamie's fists clenched, fury bubbling up. How could someone with so much turn their back on the very people who built his empire? She felt her breath quicken as she clenched her jaw. Who was he to decide their fate? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Back at the community center, Jamie's nerves twisted into knots. She stood before her neighbors, heart pounding, a crowd gathered in urgent need of answers. The stale air was thick with tension. As she spoke, her voice trembled but rang out with conviction. She shared her own grief, the sting of potential job loss, and the bitter burden of motherhood weighing on her shoulders. And then, she uncovered a truth about Mr. Hawthorne, a sordid past peeling back layers of his glossy public persona. Gasps filled the room. Faces turned towards her, eyes shining with shock and the kindling of hope. But just as Jamie felt the tide shifting, uncertainty washed over her. What would come from her revelation? Would it lead to solidarity, or would it put her family at risk? The faces around her began to change. Some looked inspired, while others blurred into concern. In that charged moment, a single question loomed: would her courage ignite collective action, or scatter them into despair? Would this be the spark that united them, or the one that shattered their fragile community? The answer remained cloaked in the tension of the room, leaving everyone suspended in a breath of anticipation. The room buzzed with a tense electricity, a storm brewing within the hearts of her neighbors. Jamie could feel their eyes digging into her, searching for strength or perhaps for reassurance that everything would somehow be okay. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her breathing, the weight of her revelation pressing down on her like a lead blanket. She had opened a door, and there was no closing it now. "Why are you doing this, Jamie?" A voice broke through the murmurings. It was Helen, an older woman with kind eyes but a furrowed brow. "You know what they'll do to you. You've got Ben to think about." For a moment, silence enveloped the room, hanging thick in the air. Jamie's heart raced. Helen's words cut through her like a knife. Was she risking everything for what? A chance to stand up to a man whose indifference felt insurmountable? But then she thought of Ben, the little boy with dreams in his eyes, the one who believed his mom could conquer the world. "I'm doing this because it matters," Jamie exclaimed, her voice rising, steadying as she found her footing among the murmurs. "Our jobs matter. Our lives matter. We are more than just numbers on Mr. Hawthorne's spreadsheets. This is our community." A ripple of murmurs surged through the crowd, resonating with her words as eyes met each other. A flicker of understanding ignited. Jamie saw the way some clenched their fists, saw the determination etched in their faces. It wasn't just her courage on the line, she could feel hope entwining its way into the hearts that were once closed. But what if he retaliates? Asked Sam, a young father, fear etched deep in his features. What if he tries to silence us? Then we stand together, Jamie replied, her voice calm but fierce. This isn't just about me. This is about all of us. If we're afraid to speak out, nothing will ever change. You've all worked too hard to let fear keep you silent. A few nods, then more. A collective spirit began brewing in the room, transforming fear into determination. They all had their burdens, their reasons for worrying, but it seemed they also shared a flicker of that same fire blazing in Jamie's heart. Let us turn this fear into action, she said, her voice gaining strength. We need a plan. We need to show him we're not backing down. We're a community, and united, we are strong. A surge of whispered agreements filled the air, a wave of energy building momentum. The crowd moved closer together, an invisible line of solidarity circling around Jamie. Some were straightening their posture, others whispering resolutely with one another. Jamie felt her heart lift. This wasn't a desperate fight anymore, it was the start of something bigger. But as they began to forge their plan, Jamie's mind whirled. She couldn't shake the haunting thought, was her own family safe? Would this action draw the wrath of a man who held so much power? As they crowded around her, excitement mounting, a sense of dread clawed at her heart. The meeting ended on a note of intention, but Jamie walked home apprehensively, the warm glow of the street lamps illuminating her path but casting long shadows in her mind. She met Ben at the front door, his innocent smile washing over her like sunlight. She knelt down to hug him tightly, feeling the weight of her choices heavy on her shoulders. As she lay beside him that night, listening to his soft breaths, she knew her decision could have consequences. But also, it was a chance. If she could rally her community, maybe that would build a future for Ben that was more than just surviving. But deep down, she couldn't shake the fear, the uncertainty of what would come next. What would Mr. Hawthorne do? Would he retaliate, or would he somehow be forced to listen? Feeling the weight of those questions linger, Jamie drifted off to a restless sleep, holding on to hope but aware that tomorrow would inevitably bring new challenges. As the dawn broke, so too would their fight. But how far would they truly go? Would they be able to stand against the tide of business and fear? The next day would show them all what they truly faced. The sun peeked through Jamie's curtains, casting soft rays over her and Ben as they slept. A hush had fallen outside, the typical morning sounds muted, as if the world was holding its breath. Jamie stirred, the events of the previous night washing over her like a wave, and she was quickly pulled into the day ahead. She nudged Ben awake. Time to rise and shine, buddy, she said cheerily, though her heart was still a whirlwind of anxiety. Ben rubbed his sleepy eyes and grinned, flashing her a smile that lit up the room, as pure and untainted as sunlight breaking through clouds. As they shared breakfast, Jamie's thoughts flickered back to the meeting. She couldn't shake the feeling that they had entered a new phase, a moment when their collective courage would either illuminate their path or lead them to darkness. Are we gonna do something special today, Mom? Ben asked, animatedly tucking into his pancakes. She hesitated, torn between the safety of mundane routines and the risks that loomed ahead. Maybe we will, she replied, forcing a smile. How about we go to the park later? I'll let you decide what we do. Ben's eyes sparkled. Awesome. We can make that big sandcastle like last time. If only it were that simple. Jamie couldn't help but admire his unshakable optimism. It made her heart ache knowing how much was at stake. She sought to channel that same hope. After breakfast, Jamie slipped into business attire, the fabric snug against her skin, like armor meant for battle. She grabbed her notepad, the scribbled notes from last night's planning session still fresh in her mind. As she walked toward her car, a brisk wind flicked at her hair, and a knot twisted in her stomach. This could be her moment, an opportunity to spark change, or it could all be a prelude to chaos. Arriving at work, she felt the familiar hum of the office, but somehow, it felt different today. People exchanged whispers, nervous energy threading through the air. As she stepped inside, every pair of eyes seemed to turn toward her, some filled with anticipation, others mixed with doubt. It struck her like ice water splashed on her face. Here was the heart of her community, waiting to see if she would lead them into battle or retreat into silence. "Morning, Jamie," Sam said, moving closer. His voice was hushed, with an edge of tension. "Are you ready for this?" "I think we have to be," she replied, her resolve hardening. Before long, the group began to gather in the break room. Jamie took a deep breath and centered herself, glancing out the window at the sprawling office park. She could almost feel Mr. Hawthorne's gaze out there, watching. Would he be dismissive of their actions? Or would he be shaken by their unity? As each neighbor filed in, Jamie met their eyes one by one, trying to convey determination and trust. "Today, we stand together," she said, her heart pounding. "Each of us matters, and we are going to show him the strength of our community. We owe it to ourselves." A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd like a tremor, each note building. Their connection felt electric, pairs of hands clasping, arms linked as they leaned together, breathing life into the wall that once separated their fears. But even as she inspired them, Jamie's thoughts drifted back to Ben. What if Mr. Hawthorne's retaliation came too harshly? She felt overwhelmed by her responsibilities, the weight of the community on her shoulders, the weight of her child in her heart. But she couldn't let fear govern her, they had come too far. As they began to strategize, the door swung open, and a chilling silence descended. Mr. Hawthorne stood framed in the doorway, imposing, looking every bit the tyrant they had painted him to be. "Good morning," he said, a sly smile creeping across his lips. "What's all this commotion about?" Jamie's heart dropped. This was the moment of truth. Would they fold, or would they stand up for themselves? What would happen next? She wondered, fear clawing at her insides as the room held its breath. Mr. Hawthorne's presence loomed, heavy and oppressive. Jamie felt a chill course through her, but she grasped the edge of the table, grounding herself. No retreat. Not now. "Mr. Hawthorne," she began, her voice steady despite the storm brewing in her chest. "We're here to discuss the changes that need to happen in our community. Changes that prioritize our families, not profits." His smile widened, an unsettling contrast to the tension in the air. "Changes? Is that so? And you think you can persuade me?" A ripple of uncertainty passed through the gathered crowd. Jamie caught worried glances as a bead of sweat formed at her temple. This man, he thrived on intimidation, feeding off fear. But if she faltered now, she risked plunging everyone into darkness. "We believe our voices matter. We've come together to make that clear," she asserted, raising her chin defiantly. She heard muffled nods behind her small anchors of support. Hawthorne crossed his arms, clearly amused. "You think your little meeting here has power? All I see are a few disgruntled neighbors playing dress-up." Disgruntled? No. Jamie inhaled deeply, her heart racing, but she pressed on. "We're committed and united. It's more than a mere meeting. It's a movement." She felt the heat rising in her cheeks, igniting something deep within her. This was about Ben, about safety. About showing him strength that wouldn't back down. He stepped closer, invading her space. "And what if I decide to shut this down? What are you all going to do?" "Nothing but whine." The knot in Jamie's stomach tightened as heads turned, uncertainty sprinkling the previously united front. She glanced back at her colleagues, their eyes were wide, filled with hope but equally with doubt. "Let us show him," she whispered to herself, feeling a new surge of determination. "We won't be silenced." "Together," she said louder, finding her voice again. "Together, we stand against intimidation. You can try to break us, but we won't fall apart. Our community is stronger than your schemes." A murmur rose from the crowd, escalating to a chorus of affirmation. They were brave in numbers, she could almost sense the air crackling with electric energy. Hawthorne's smile faltered slightly, and for a moment, Jamie saw doubt flicker in his eyes. But it vanished quickly, replaced with hardened resolve. "You've got guts, I'll give you that," he said, using his condescending tone. "But know this: every action has a consequence. Since you are bold enough to make this stand, I hope you're prepared for what comes next." There was a silence, then a low murmur spread through the room, worries creeping back in. Jamie felt the gravity of his words press down on her. "Nothing worth fighting for comes without cost," she said, the reminder of her responsibility for Ben echoing in her mind. Together, they had come so far, and she couldn't let fear snuff out their hope. "You don't scare us, Hawthorne," someone shouted from the back, a defiant voice cutting through the tension. "Not anymore." His eyes narrowed, and he turned, leaving the room, but his presence lingered like a thundercloud overhead. The moment felt surreal, a whirlwind of anticipation mixed with an undertone of dread. Jamie's heart pounded, each beat resounding like a war drum. As the tension eased, Jamie turned to her neighbors. "We did it, but this is just the beginning. We'll prepare for whatever comes next." Ben's face came to mind, his innocent smile igniting a fire inside her. She would do whatever it took to protect her son, to protect their community. But even as the adrenaline coursed through her, Jamie couldn't shake the fear of Hawthorne's threats. What would be the repercussions of their stand? Is this really worth the cost? She wondered, heart heavy. As they began to strategize again, determination flickering like lanterns in the dark, the door creaked open slightly, and Jamie's breath caught in her throat. What now? She took a step forward, ready to face whatever awaited them. This was a fight for their future, and she wouldn't retreat. What was waiting just beyond that door? Would it bring renewed hope or further despair? The creaking door slowly swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. Heart racing, Jamie squinted into the dimly lit corridor beyond. Every instinct in her screamed to brace for danger, but curiosity pulled her farther into the light. "Who's there?" she called, her voice steady yet laced with uncertainty. As the figure stepped forward, a collective gasp rippled through the group. It was Mrs. Porter, the elderly woman who lived at the edge of the neighborhood. Her frail frame was hunched, but her eyes sparkled with a fierce resolve that belied her age. "Sorry to intrude," she said, her voice shaking yet determined. "But I couldn't stay away. Not after what I heard." Jamie felt the air shift. Mrs. Porter had always been a reluctant participant in their meetings, preferring the safety of her garden to the chaos of community politics. But here she was, stepping into the fray. "We need your voice, Mrs. Porter," Jamie said gently, recognizing the weight of the moment. "We're facing a fight against Hawthorne and what he stands for." The old woman straightened, her shoulders squaring. "Then I'm in, sweetheart. I may be old, but I remember how to fight. Hawthorne has taken too much from us already. It's time we take a stand." A swell of emotion surged through Jamie, relief mixed with gratitude. It was one thing to rally the younger families, but to see a pillar of the community rise was something else entirely. "Thank you," Jamie whispered, the gratitude heavy in her tone. The room buzzed with newfound energy. If Mrs. Porter was willing to fight, who else might step forward? Mrs. Porter looked out at the crowd, her frail hand raised. "All of us have something to lose if we don't stand together. Our homes, our children, they're worth more than any corporation's greed." A murmur echoed, voices intertwining, each person slowly finding their courage. Jamie watched as the hesitant neighbors who had shrunk back now began to lean in. "There's power in our stories," another voice spoke up from the back, a young father named Tom, whose own fears had been silent until now. "We can share what this community means to us. We are not just neighbors, we are family." "Yes," came another resounding voice, a mother with tears in her eyes. "We all want what's best for our kids. We can't let Hawthorne win." With each shout, the room seemed to swell with possibility, the shadows retreating as their spirits soared. They were no longer just individuals afraid to act. They had formed a team. An army. Jamie took a breath, the moment heavy with significance. "Together, we build our defense. We gather our stories, share our hopes. This fight is for our families, our freedom. The crowd erupted with cheers, all doubts dissolving into a symphony of determination. For a brief moment, fear slipped away like smoke in a breeze. But just as hope began to blanket the room, a familiar, chilling voice echoed outside. "Looks like you've rallied some soldiers." How quaint. Jamie's heart sank. Hawthorne had returned, and there was no denying the menace in his tone. She looked around, fear creeping back as reality settled in. How would they face him when he made his next move? "Stay strong," she urged, rallying her fellow neighbors. "We've come too far to back down now." As the door swung open fully, revealing Hawthorne in all his imposing glory, Jamie knew the battle had truly begun. They had hope, but was it enough to fend off the encroaching storm? With each passing second, the air thickened with tension, leaving Jamie wrestling with uncertainty. The stakes were higher than ever. What had Hawthorne planned this time? And would they be prepared for his next attack? Hawthorne's figure loomed in the doorway, casting a dark shadow over the room. He stepped inside, the cool air around him seeming to swirl with a malevolent energy. Jamie felt her stomach knot as she took a step back, instinctively alert to the threat he embodied. "Quite the gathering you have here," he said, his lips curling into a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "But can you really believe you have a chance against me?" The crowd shifted, unease rippling through the group. Jamie's heart raced as she glanced at Mrs. Porter, whose eyes were locked on Hawthorne with fierce defiance. There was something unwavering in the old woman's gaze that sparked a flicker of hope within Jamie. "Yeah, we can," Jamie declared, her voice cutting through the tension. "We're not backing down anymore. This is our community, and we will protect it." Hawthorne chuckled, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Jamie's spine. Such bravery from a child. "You really think your little stories can compete with power and money?" But the more he taunted, the more determined the crowd became. Jamie could feel the shift, as faces turned toward her with trust and solidarity. "It isn't just about stories," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "It's about our lives, our families, and the dreams we've built in this place. You may have power, but we have each other." "Pathetic," Hawthorne retorted, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes that encouraged Jamie. Maybe they were getting to him. "We've got witnesses, neighbors, and a history worth fighting for," shouted another voice, echoing the sentiments soaring in the room. Tom stepped forward, voice steady. "Hawthorne can try to scare us, but with every family story shared, we grow stronger. And we're not afraid to speak out," added the mother from before, her tears now dried, replaced by resolve. "You can't silence us." With each word, the people surrounding Jamie began to stand taller, regaining the strength that had felt lost. A chorus of agreement filled the air as they all began to voice their stories of late nights spent in the community playground, of thrumming birthday parties that spilled into the street, of neighbors who had become friends. Hawthorne's expression shifted slightly, doubt creeping into his meticulously crafted composure. Jamie saw an opening. "This is our chance," she thought. "We need to keep pushing." "Funny," he said, but his bravado was thin. "You think this little community is worth it? You're all just helpless waiting for someone to save you." "Not true," Jamie shouted, her pulse pounding in her ears. "We save each other. Together, we're more than just scared neighbors. We are a force of nature." At that moment, inspiration seemed to wrap around everyone present. Jamie felt their collective heartbeats synchronize, a rhythm that pulsed with unyielding hope. She could see Mrs. Porter nodding in approval, the fire in her eyes blazing brighter than before. "Do you feel that?" Jamie called out, encouraging them. "That's unity coming alive. It's what we'll use to stand against you." Hawthorne's smile faltered as the realization hit him. He had underestimated them. He had only seen their fear, but now he was faced with the strength that rose from their shared values and stories. Jamie took a breath, setting her sights on Hawthorne. "We won't let you take our homes. We're ready to fight back." With every word spoken, the air electrified, crackling with energy that thrummed through the crowd. Hawthorne's confidence began to wane, like a wave retreating from the shore. What if this backfires? Jamie wondered. For a moment, uncertainty flickered inside her. But she quickly pushed it away, determined to forge ahead. Hawthorne steadied himself, his voice low and threatening. You think this will end well for you? Prepare for what's coming next. As he turned to leave, a chill swept through the gathering. Jamie stared after him, her heart pounding. She knew this wasn't over, the real test was yet to come. Could they withstand the storm that was brewing? And what would be Hawthorne's next move? The weight of the unknown hung heavy in the air, ready to challenge their resolve once again. The crowd buzzed with a nervous energy as Hawthorne's presence faded into the shadows. Jamie's heart pounded in her chest, a wild drumbeat that echoed the uncertainty swirling around them. They had pushed back, yes, but what would happen next? Would he retaliate with the cruel schemes he was known for, or had they truly shaken his confidence? Mrs. Porter stepped forward, her determination burning bright. We can't keep waiting for the next blow, she said, her voice steady and strong. We need a plan. He'll come for us. We should be ready. Jamie nodded vigorously, feeling an urgency spring to life within her. What if we gather everyone? Share more stories, organize meetings. We need to spread the word that we won't be silent. We'll form a united front, every family represented. Tom jumped in, his face alight with conviction. We can even host a town hall. Invite everyone. The more we talk about our lives, the more power we'll take back from him. As murmurs of agreement spread through the group, Jamie could almost feel hope blossoming in her chest. They were discussing action, not just reacting to fear. She glanced at her neighbors, real, vibrant people who had fought for each other in small ways for years. Hawthorne wants to divide us. We can't let him. This community has so much heart and strength. You're right, Mrs. Porter said, scanning the room as if she was ready to guide them into battle. Each of us has a stake in this. There's history here. Stories that deserve to be told. Someone in the back called out, what about my grandfather's bakery? It's been around forever. It means so much to this town. Another voice chimed in about a local park where children spent countless summer days. Soon, the room pulsed with tales of what the community meant to each individual present, each memory weaving a stronger bond among them. The stories flowed, and Jamie felt them stitched together like a tapestry, each thread a testament to their shared history. With each narrative, she could see Hawthorne's hold over them begin to fray. Their voices grew bolder, rising higher as they reclaimed the memories that defined their home. But in the back of her mind, uncertainty lingered. They were coming together, yes, but was it enough? Jamie bit her lip, trying to push aside that nagging worry. After all, Hawthorne had power and resources. He was bound to strike back with something ruthless. As the discussions continued, a newfound energy crackled in the air. That feeling of unity was palpable, like a flame ready to explode into a wildfire if fed by the right fuel. We need a plan, she urged, glancing around, catching Mrs. Porter's fierce gaze. We can invite everyone to the park tomorrow. Share stories and ideas. But we also need to think about how to counteract Hawthorne's moves. We have to be prepared. How can we do that? Someone asked hesitantly, the tentative weight of concern hanging in the air. I don't know yet, Jamie admitted, feeling the pressure of their expectations. But deep inside, she felt a spark of desperation turn into determination. But we'll figure it out together. Whatever it takes. As the night wore on, Jamie didn't want to leave the room. The stories, the plans, the energy, they ignited something inside her that pushed back against the dread. Whatever came next, they would face it together. A loud crash suddenly interrupted their meeting, a sound so out of place that everyone froze. Hawthorne had returned. And now, they would see just how far he'd go to crush their newfound hope. What was he planning now? The air thickened with dread, and Jamie felt a chill creep up her spine. Would their unity be strong enough to withstand whatever darkness he brought? The room fell silent as everyone turned towards the source of the crash. Jamie's heart raced, each beat sharp and laced with anxiety. Was Hawthorne testing them? Or was it something worse? She could feel the tension in the air, heavy and thick, wrapping around them like a noose. Then there he was, stepping into the doorway with a calculated swagger. Hawthorne's smile was as chilling as it was confident. It looked like a predator confronting its prey. He didn't just crash their meeting, he had a point to prove. "Look at this," he said, his voice dripping with mock amusement. "You all gathered here, thinking you could plot against me? It's adorable. Really." He stepped further into the room, his presence filling the space with intimidation. "Don't you know you're battling against forces you can't begin to comprehend?" Mrs. Porter stood her ground, her chin lifted defiantly. "This isn't about you, Hawthorne. This is about our community. We won't be silent anymore." A ripple of courage surged through the crowd, bolstering Jamie's resolve. She took a small step forward, pushing back against the suffocating atmosphere with her own voice. "We have stories that matter. Things you can't take away from us. We're stronger than you think." Hawthorne's laughter echoed, harsh and condescending. "Oh, dear Jamie. Stories? I'll take a moment to relish this. But you're playing with fire." His gaze swept over them all, lingering on each weary face. "Do you really believe you can ignite change? This town will always bow to power." Jamie's pulse quickened again, but this time it was with purpose. "We don't need to bow. We can stand up together." The collective energy in the room seemed to amplify as each person found their voice, building on the courage Jamie initiated. Voices mingled, rising in volume. "We're not afraid. This isn't over. Let him try." Each declaration tore down the facade of fear that had held them captive for too long. Hawthorne's demeanor shifted, a flicker of annoyance dancing in his eyes. "You think this will end well for you? You'll regret this." "That's just it," Tom stepped forward, his voice unwavering. "We're not afraid of regret anymore. We'll create our own fate." For a brief moment, it seemed like the weight of Hawthorne's threat lost its grip on them. Laughter echoed, not out of mockery but out of newfound hope. The very notion of horror had slowly sloughed off. Suddenly, Hawthorne's expression morphed, the condescending grin replaced with frustration. "You've gone too far. You think this is over? I can take everything from you." He gestured towards the group, eyes darkening. "And I will." With that, he spun on his heels and stalked back into the shadows, leaving behind an air charged with tension. The crowd slowly exhaled as relief fought against the uncertainty lurking at the edges of their thoughts. "I can't believe he came back," someone muttered, breaking the spell. "Don't let fear creep back in," Jamie urged, gripping the edge of a table for support. "We have to stick together. He won't stop until he sees us shattered." A weighty silence fell again, but this time it was less oppressive. Hope was fragile, yet real. Each of them carried it, a flicker fanned by shared stories. "Tomorrow, in the park," Jamie said, her voice breaking the stillness. "We gather our stories and our spirits. We make a stand." And as they each nodded, a sense of unity bound them into something stronger than the fear that had plagued them for far too long. But as they began to disperse, Jamie's mind raced. Hawthorne wouldn't bow out quietly. She wondered, what was he planning next? Would they truly be ready for whatever darkness lay ahead? The next morning dawned with a crispness that hung in the air like a promise. Jamie awoke earlier than usual, her mind racing as she prepared for the gathering. The sunlight streamed through her window, illuminating the room and bouncing off the walls like the spirits of the brave folks who had stood with her the night before. In the corner, her notebook lay open, pages filled with hastily scribbled thoughts. She read the last lines again, "We won't be silent anymore." Each word glimmered in her memory, reminding her of their strength. She grabbed the notebook, jotting down a few more lines. Ideas for speeches, reminders of stories they could share. Each written stroke filled her with determination. As she stepped outside, Jamie felt a mix of excitement and fear surge through her. The park was a short walk away, and while her heart raced, she found comfort in the familiar sights and sounds. Children played nearby, laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves overhead. The world continued to spin as if it hadn't registered the battle brewing in their small town. When Jamie arrived at the park, a sense of empowerment washed over her as she took in the sight of familiar faces gathering in clusters. Friends, neighbors, even strangers had come to support the cause. They were clumped together, discussing stories and bowing their heads together like a tapestry woven from the threads of their pasts. "Hey, over here!" Tom waved her over, his enthusiasm palpable. "We finally decided on the format. We thought breaking into groups might give everyone a chance to share their experiences. Make it feel more personal." "Great idea," Jamie replied, her face lighting up. "We can set the tone right from the start. It's our moment to shine." As they divided into smaller circles, Jamie's heart swelled. Was this what it felt like to reclaim control? Everyone brought their stories. Some had faced betrayal, others loss, and some had simply been unheard. Each tale lifted the weight of despair just a little, stitching together a fabric of resilience. But lurking behind the encouragement, doubt nibbled at the corners of her mind. Hawthorne had made his threats clear, and as they began to share their truths, she wondered, would he try to sabotage their efforts? Could he emerge from his shadows and strike before they even had the chance to ignite their movement? Midway through the gathering, the sky clouded slightly. Jamie caught a glimpse of a figure in the distance, the stark silhouette cut against the sunlight. Her breath hitched as she turned her gaze. "Is that?" The crowd, momentarily hushed by the change in atmosphere, shifted their attention too. A chill crept down her spine. Hawthorne. He stood there, unmoving, a specter of menace threatening to barge into their moment of unity. "Stand firm. We can't let fear take hold," she whispered, but her voice faltered as dread mirrored in the eyes around her. The tension thickened, an electric charge. Jamie backed away slightly, her heart pounding louder than the chatter that had filled the air just moments before. She could see Hawthorne adjusting his coat, a calculated smirk creeping across his face. He was testing them again. Was this his answer to their defiance? Jamie exchanged worried glances with Tom, who clenched his fists, preparing for whatever confrontation might come next. Hawthorne took a single step forward, his voice slicing through the silence. "Do you really think your little gathering will matter in the end?" How naive. As he spoke, Jamie felt a familiar flame ignite within her. This wasn't the time to shrink back. "We can make a difference, even against someone like you," she called out, surprising even herself with how steady her voice sounded. Eyes turned towards her, filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Hawthorne surveyed the crowd, his eyes narrowing. "We'll see about that." The moment hung heavy in the air as anger threaded through the gathering, uniting them against their common foe. They would not back down. But as Jamie stood there, filled with defiance, she couldn't shake the feeling that this confrontation would change everything. How could they defend their voices against a man who thrived on fear? And then, out of nowhere, panic surged through the crowd as a loud crash echoed from behind them. Was Hawthorne planning an attack? What had he set into motion? In the flicker of uncertainty, she realized today would hold the answers, but would they have the strength to confront whatever Hawthorne threw their way? Chaos erupted in the park as the loud crash reverberated like thunder through the warm air. Jamie's heart raced as she spun around, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Just when they had found their voice, Hawthorne seemed poised to unleash something that could shatter their fragile unity. Her eyes scanned the park grounds, searching for the source of the sound. A handful of his men appeared on the other side of the gathering, their expressions devoid of empathy, wielding equipment that looked ominous. Jamie's stomach twisted, her fear bubbled up, threatening to overtake her. "What are they doing?" someone murmured, caught in shock. "We won. Let fear win," Jamie shouted, steeling herself against the dread threatening to swallow her whole. And then, it clicked. "They're here to intimidate us." She stepped forward, her voice ringing out with newfound strength. "We're all here for the same reason, to protect our community." Hawthorne smirked, but Jamie refused to let it get to her. Just as that dark smile crept upon his lips, Mrs. Porter took the lead, stepping right into the path of one of his men. "You're not going to intimidate us anymore. We are stronger than your threats." Her frail figure exuded a powerhouse of courage. The crowd stirred, filled with electric energy, determination rising in unison. The collective spirit was palpable as Jamie watched neighbor support build like a fabric layered with their shared dreams and fears. "This is our town," someone yelled, rallying the crowd even further. "Let us stand tall." Another shouted, fists rising into the air, igniting the fire of their defiance. Every angry shout echoed through the park, each voice claimed a piece of their dignity. At that moment, Jamie felt the shift. It was as if the last veil of doubt had lifted, revealing the true strength of what they had become, a unified community ready to rise against oppression. "We'll fight for our dreams," she called, her conviction shaking the very ground beneath them. "You think you can fight me? You're just a bunch of scared rabbits," Hawthorne yelled back, his voice laced with derision. "Gathering here one to change what's set to unfold. I will build over all of you." "Not today," Jamie replied fiercely, a solidarity like wildfire spreading through the crowd. "We'll make our voices heard, one story at a time." With renewed fervor, Jamie began to speak, her words flowing like a river that couldn't be dammed anymore. "We're here because we love our homes. We love our families. And we refuse to let you take that away." The responsiveness was overwhelming. The crowd mirrored her resolve, each person clenching their fists tighter, ready to demand what was rightfully theirs: their voices, their homes, and their future. Hawthorne's smirk faltered, he clearly hadn't expected such a fierce and passionate response. With a snap of his fingers, one of his men charged forth, preparing to further escalate the situation. "Get them out of here," he commanded. But just as the man advanced, Jamie shouted, "We stick together." She felt a collective strength rise in answer to her words. With arms linked, neighbors pressed forward, forming a protective barrier against the intruders. "You'll have to get through us first," someone shouted from the back, and it wasn't just words. They stood firm, resolute, surrounding each other with the kind of spirit that could not be easily broken. Hawthorne's face twisted into frustration, then fury, unable to compute how mere rabbits had banded together so thoroughly. "You'll regret this," he spat as he retreated, signaling his men to do the same. As the tension in the air began to wane, breath filled with a mixture of triumph and disbelief erupted from the crowd. Jamie felt tears prick her eyes as she looked around at the faces softened by solidarity and resolve. They were more than just her neighbors, they were family. In that moment, every story shared, every whispered word of fear, transformed into a powerful force. The chants and yells echoed, each one reiterating their shared strength, a soundscape filled with the promise of change. Feeling someone dip into her side, Jamie turned to see Ben, his wide eyes filled with admiration. "You were amazing, Mom," he said, bouncing on his heels, excitement spilling from his tiny frame. With a radiant smile, Jamie knelt down, hugging him tightly. "We did it together, buddy. This is just the beginning." In the aftermath, the park remained alive with energy, the once air of intimidation replaced with the zeal for change. "Let us come together again," she exclaimed, rallying her neighbors. "Let us keep telling our stories. We must protect what matters." In the cool glow of dusk, Jamie felt something shift significantly within her: a fierce belief that they could continue battling against Hawthorne's campaign until they claimed their future. It was a moment of realization, a collective promise to each other, ignited by the fact that they had faced down fear and emerged victorious. They were no longer shrouded in shadows. Instead, they emerged as a unified force, ready to advocate for their dreams and build a brighter tomorrow. The fight ahead would be challenging, but together, they could overcome anything. As her neighbors began to cheer, Jamie felt hope wash over her, weaving magical possibilities into their lives. This wasn't the end, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, a bright new dawn filled with potential. This was their story, and they were ready to share it with the world. Now, here's what you need to do: subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, you know it matters. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support our community, show you care now. Don't wait not even one more second to share.